Hello, everyone, and welcome back again to another new episode of Inside Voices First Takes. I am still Colin Meag,
And I'm still Adam Rubin.
and today we are going to discuss what we've both just seen from the movie theater, Justice League.
Shall we?
All right, Adam, I'll let you go first. What are your thoughts on Justice League?
Don't go see Justice League.
Okay, we're done. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for playing. No, I do have thoughts about Justice League.
Yes.
That's not a joke. Don't go see Justice League. But I will say that it was a very interesting movie. I had more complicated feelings about this movie than I've had at any of the other Snyderverse DC movies.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, we both agree that Wonder Woman is the best of the movies?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay, good. The only good one? Good. Just double checking to make sure that we can have a conversation about this. I don't understand what's going on with Zack Snyder, because I know he can make a movie. I've seen him make movies before. But these last few movies, it seems like he has forgotten what movies are supposed to be.
Well, let me stop you right there. I mean,
okay.
If you did not know behind the scenes, Zack Snyder did not finish this movie. There was a family tragedy. His daughter was killed. And when they had to do like 15% reshoots, he was not consulted at all. He just left the project. Joss Whedon came in, wrote all the scenes, directed all these scenes, and he was the one who edited it all together. Zack was not involved at all with the finishing product of the movie. He helped shoot most of it for sure, but he did not help make the end result.
And that's a very fair point to make. But having seen the previous two Snyder movies, and having seen all of Joss Whedon's movies, I do not believe that Joss Whedon came in and with his 15% of the movie ruined the whole movie.
Oh, no.
I think it was lacking to begin with, and I am counting what Zack Snyder genuinely did on the film.
Well, I think as a result of Zack not being there, and yes, having Joss come in kind of last minute, I think there are a lot of stories that came out on the web about how Warner Brothers kind of forced they literally wanted the end movie, the end result, to just be 2 hours. And yet, like you said, from all the trailers, there is so much missing from the trailers in this movie. So much, like entire scenes, entire conversations are now completely gone. And that's what I had the biggest problem with. Like, somebody cut this up so much that I don't even view it what we got in the theater as the official Justice League movie. This is like a first draft for me. I don't know what else to say. Like, this is not what Zack Snyder, I think, would have wanted. Or even Joss Whedon, if he was like doing his own movie from scratch, what he wanted. This was like a hodgepodge, I don't know, kitchen sink, I don't know, all mixed up and yet completely missing so many ingredients for it to be a legit Justice League movie. And I don't understand it. I think because of the backlash that Batman v Superman had, it was a 2.5 hour long movie. They try to really like explore so many things about it that it kind of became boring and slow and tedious. Warner Brothers did not want that at all for Justice League. And unfortunately, it also backfired.
But let's all just remind ourselves that being 2.5 hours long was not Batman v Superman's problem. Batman v Superman's problem is it's a terrible movie from top to bottom and the writing is garbage. So I don't, while I accept your explanation as the reason that in this new movie, the Justice League, yes, the pacing is clearly off. And there are really ragged shifts in emotional tone from scene to scene and even over the course of a sequence. And I am absolutely willing to write those off to the weird process with, of course, Zack very sadly having to leave the project before it was completed, bring on the second director. All that all that behind the scenes drama you mentioned. I'm willing to give it a pass for all of those things, the pacing, the editing being a little bit rough around the edges. And once again, unfortunately, being this really bad anti-lesson that Hollywood seems to think it's learned, where if the movie feels slow, you got to make it shorter. And as I've said time and time again on this program, if something doesn't feel contiguous, doesn't feel like it's progressing the way it should, it's going to feel clunky and slow. But cutting more out almost always is the wrong thing to do. You need to let those pieces remain in so it's a cohesive experience, because time flies when you're having fun. If it's a bad movie, it's going to feel long no matter how short you make it. And the fans will stay for 2.5 hours. But all that behind the scenes stuff cannot address the fact that the writing in this movie, again, was garbage. This is a movie that does not know the meaning of the word subtext. Well, and for those of you for those of you who have stayed with us this far, before we go into spoiler territory, which I badly want to do, I'll tell you, I think it's clear. I'm going to say don't bother seeing this movie. I give it a 4.5 out of 10. Colin, do you think they should see it?
That's a tough one.
I think that's all you need to know, folks.
Well, because I can't listen, because I'm one of the more forgiving persons with this DC universe.
You truly are. You truly are.
Just as a quick breakdown, I really like Man of Steel. BVS had problems. Suicide Squad was just kind of fun but dumb, and then Wonder Woman was fantastic. So in that pantheon, as a non-spoiler way of saying it, Justice League, sadly, is probably like the most generic of these movies.
Yes.
And that's a huge drawback. That is a huge negative for me. If you're expecting something special, something like very innovative, like how the first Avengers was, with this funny tone, how it was able to balance everything perfectly. This is not that movie, sadly. This is not what the first team-up movie should have been. So if you're expecting a great team-up movie, you should not go, because you will be disappointed. However,
so they don't need to see it. So they don't need to see it.
Well, however,
they can wait and watch it on television in a year.
However, if you thought like you hated BBS so much because it was so dark, so dreary, where's the hope? Where is like the optimism, whatever like that? Well, then Justice League will give you some of that. I will say that. Justice League you might be happy with in that regard. So it just depends on how you viewed the other movies. Yes. But I'd say overall.
Whereas if you disliked Batman v Superman because it's a shit film, this is not going to make you feel any better about that.
Maybe a tad bit, but not enough. Maybe just a tad bit.
All right. So that's one don't see it, and that's one conditional most people probably shouldn't see it.
Make up your own dang mind, okay? You decide. I'm not going to tell you.
People do not come to this show to make up their own minds, Colin.
Fine. I say rent it. Don't see it in the theater.
There you go. Okay. I'll take that. Yeah. I would say don't. I would say wait till it's free. Because you'll never know. When they cut it up for free television, you'll never notice.
Wait and see if there's going to be like an actual, like maybe 2.5, 3 hour long director's vision cut. Then go see that one for sure. That's what I say.
If that happens, I promise we will talk about it and update you on whether you need to see that either. Yes. But in the meantime, so for those of you who still want to see it opening weekend and you're worried about spoilers, this is your official spoiler alert. Now that that's over, really an anti-spoiler alert, there really are no spoilers in this movie. Nothing of consequence happens in this movie.
The only spoiler I would say in terms of like things that were really well hidden from
alert, yes,
was the actual end credit scene, which I have to say was the best part of Justice League. The last,
which is pathetic,
is the best part of Justice League. That's a problem. That's when you know there's something wrong with the movie. The end credit scene should not be the best scene in the entire movie. Along with, I'll say, the other best scene was like the whole flashback to the first like battle with Steppenwolf and his army, and like the original Amazons and Atlanteans and Green Lantern. We saw Green Lantern. It wasn't our Green Lantern, but they did show Green Lantern. I appreciated that. And like
they showed Green Lantern getting killed, which is even better than seeing Green Lantern.
And then they show the ring going on to find a new worthy successor. So I appreciate
a non-dead person to possess.
And then they show like Olympians, gods helping out. So like if you're a comic book fan of that moment, that scene, you're just like, Yeah. Yeah. The more of this. This is fantastic. I like this. And then, of course, the end credit scene where we see Lex Luthor escape from prison and he invites Deathstroke. The first time we see Deathstroke in a DCU movie, it was everything. I had a big damn grin on my face. I was just like, yeah, Deathstroke, yes. And he's arrived. He's going to get his own movie with Batman, and this is going to be the setup. And we're going to get maybe an Injustice League. They want to set up an anti-Justice League or a what's the other term?
A League of Their Own.
A Legion of Doom, I think it's also known as in the comics. They want to make their own league as well. That makes me excited about maybe where they're going to go going forward. But that has not saved the movie, sadly, as much. No,
especially since, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a 30-second scenelet in which nothing happens. So it's just the fact that you get to see this character, who I didn't know who he was. I could tell he's a character. So he shows up looking like a knockoff Deadpool. But
that's exactly what they do. Like that's the inspiration. That's the inspiration behind the Deathstroke and Deadpool look exactly alike, and that's on purpose.
Yeah. So other than the fact that you see that he exists, nothing else happens in that scene, and that's, you're saying, the best scene of the movie, which is not a good sign. And I don't agree, for the record, that that's the best scene in the movie. But everything in the movie is completely generic. Nothing really of any consequence happens. And my biggest problem is, like I was saying, there's no subtext. Everyone talks in this movie the whole time like they're under the influence of Wonder Woman's lasso. Everyone just says the thing that's on their heart.
Including Aquaman literally at one point.
There is one scene that is supposed to be a joke where Aquaman is talking and sharing his emotions with the crew, and then everybody's like, why is he talking like this? And then Batman sort of gives a signal, and oops, I'm sitting on the lasso. And he pulls the lasso out of his butt and throws it to Wonder Woman. And I'm telling you, nothing about what he was saying even registered to my ear as being unusual, because that's how everyone talked the whole movie. Everyone was saying, oh my God, it's so great to see you alive again, Superman. You would have been so disappointed in me while you were dead. I did not live up to your expectations. I wasn't a good reporter. That's actual dialogue from Lois Lane. What kind of a person speaks like that? It was crazy. That you can't blame on him being gone for 15% of the film. The whole movie read like that.
I'm more forgiving about that because, I don't really care for that much subtext, as you well know. So,
that's right, because you have difficulty deciphering human interactions.
I appreciate when characters speak their minds. Okay, good. I'm in your headspace. I know what you mean. No gray area.
Because you would be the only actual human to fail the Blade Runner test.
Yeah, I like that movie too. Now, but my biggest things. So, in terms of like I said about being generic, say what you will about Batman vs Superman, okay?
And I will.
That movie is not generic. That movie is very much its own thing. It is very much, its own animal. It's trying to present like its own version of Batman and its own version of Superman, which is a little bit warped from what most people are used to.
Okay,
it's very much its own committed vision. Which, whether you like it or not, you have to respect. It had a vision. It had a unique vision. Whether or not you liked it or you didn't. Whereas this movie, the vision is not there anymore. The vision is just it's gone. It's just a generic team action movie. I couldn't name one thing that would make it unique to stand out from other team action movies. That's a problem. That's a huge problem for Justice League. That it's just generic. It's almost boring in a way. That's the worst thing.
It's very boring in many ways.
Good or bad. If you can be as bad as you can. But if you have a vision, I'll still like you probably better than just a boring, mediocre movie, which is really my grade for this is the best way I can describe it. It's mediocre. It's not terrible at all. It's not good.
That's true. And we agree on that. It's not terrible. It's just mediocre. Right, it's just nothing.
But it also doesn't stick with you. Nothing really sticks with you. No. When you leave the movie theater, you're just like, nothing sticks with you. BVS, something stick with you. I mean, the introduction of Wonder Woman was just iconic, okay? The death of Superman, that's a huge deal, okay? This movie, that's the best sound I can do in this situation.
I mean, the most iconic thing that happened in this movie was the fact that when you resurrect Superman, there's a huge explosion that perfectly blows off his shirt.
Well,
but not his pants.
That's true.
But definitely his suit jacket, shirt and tie, but that's it. Oh, and his shoes.
Yeah, it's true. Okay, so like the Incredible Hulk, all of a sudden his pants are the only thing in there. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's a good point. But but my other thing, so yes, it was too generic, not enough of like a unique director's vision or enough of a unique type of, I don't know, look or tone or whatever. But also because it was so, I think, edited and such much was missing, there was so much stuff in the movie that I don't understand. Like, I'm still confused because there was no context about what things were happening about. Like the whole Aquaman scene after the box gets taken from his place, and he's talking to, I think
his place is called Atlantis. Watch a movie, Colin.
Well, you know, whatever. But he's talking to the girl. I think it's Hera, something. But we don't know who she is. We don't know her relationship to him. We don't that whole conversation. I don't know what they were talking about. I had no idea what they were talking about. If they're talking about his own past, about their ancestors, about
they were talking about his mom. They were talking about Aquaman's mom.
Well,
if you will.
Well, the problem is because we didn't get an Aquaman movie before this, and then this movie didn't spend enough time about Aquaman and his origins. Them just talking about his mom, if it was his mom,
it was his mom.
It doesn't mean anything because we haven't seen this. This is our first introduction to him. You can't just sprout random dialogue that if I haven't seen a previous movie or you don't like show in a flashback, I'm not going to understand what you're talking about. You know, that's not good. If you're establishing characters, that's not good.
His actual line is, "My mother abandoned me on my father's doorstep when I was 2 years old." That's all you need to know. He tells you everything you need to know because there's no subtext in the movie.
Well, again,
and then he says, "Why should I give a damn? How is that my problem?" And she says, "Oh, to save your life. How much that must have hurt her to do that. You don't even appreciate it." And then he's kind of like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And we don't know it either, but it's all real obvious what it is.
That might have been a good movie if that had already been established in his own movie previously.
I get your point.
Marvel knows what it's doing when it was doing.
I get your point.
Yeah. Same with the Flash.
My point is,
I know the history about the Flash, luckily, but if you were just watching and you're like, "Why is the dad in prison? What's this all about?" Blah, blah, blah. I know what it means, but anyone who doesn't probably like, why is this important? I don't get what are we showing this for?
No, I know. I don't know what it means, and I understand that it's only important because you'll find out later why it's important. It just is in this movie.
See, but just having it say because it is, that's not a good enough reason. Sadly.
Well, it's a big. I mean, listen, the whole movie is bland nothing. What do you want from it? But I need to get to a much more important problem than the fact that there weren't enough prequels to this movie to set it up properly. The much more important problem to this movie is the fact that the villain sucks. He sucked.
I heard about this too, and again, I think they might have cut a lot of stuff out regarding what I thought going into this movie was that he was supposed to be like an ambassador for the actual big bad that will threaten, like you know, Thanos in Marvel. There's a character named Darkseid, and he's like the biggest baddie ever in the DC world. And I read, or I thought at least I read somewhere that this guy was like the first ambassador, or like his first lieutenant coming to scout the planet, and then you start the invasion like that, and then he gets drawn back. He gets sent back, and then Darkseid's like, "Well, then I'll do it myself," like how Thanos is going to do it. That's what I assumed. But they really they don't really even go into like how he's affiliated with Darkseid at all. He just kind of is like he's like his own thing, and I'm just like, well, that's disappointing because you're not that interesting on your own.
And
I don't
even if that had been true, which for the record, there's no evidence that is true. But even if that had been true, it looked like a bad video game, Colin. It didn't even look remotely good. It wasn't even like he was a real monster. He was nothing. He was a video game character in the middle of a movie.
That I don't care about. Like in terms of was it the best CGI? No. But then was also like the whole third act with the red sky also pretty bad? Yeah. So
that's my point. No, that's what we need to talk about. A lot of this movie just looked bad.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You have an unlimited amount of money to make your stupid action figure blockbuster. How can you let it look bad? That's the only thing it has to do.
Yeah, I mean,
that was crazy. Like some of the green screen didn't even work well. Like some of the actual keying of the Amazon's hair when they were riding on the horses looked bad. It was crazy.
Well, the Amazon part I didn't mind that much. It wasn't like it was just like one scene. but like with the third act with them in Russia, that's the location for like the final climactic. The whole team comes together. Yeah. Again, and this is why Avengers knew how to do it better. Okay, the ultimate team up at the very end of the movie should not be in an abandoned part of Russia with only like, I don't know, 10 civilians in the way. Only like 10 civilians in the way. That is
no. There's 4 key civilians who we meet way too early in the movie.
Right. 4 key civilians. And then like a building.
But then a building full of other people that like Superman
that we never meet. But like,
it's a joke. It's a joke that he saves them. It's the worst movie.
But this is supposed to be like the beginning of the end of the world, and we pick a spot that is literally nobody. Avengers 1 had New York. There were so many people getting hurt, so many buildings that could get toppled, so many people could die. And this movie says, you know what? Let's not put it in an important place. Let's put it in an abandoned waste area. That's really going to drive stakes up. Are you kidding me? Dumb. Dumb.
That's a very valid point. That's the one we're going to agree on the most tonight, is that you're right. That was dumb.
Like, if you're going to, this is the first team up, and it's the beginning of the end of the world because the boxes are merging and the whole ground is becoming, I'm assuming, I don't know what, like an alien Mad Max looking planet. This is not the right location to give it the right stakes. And it goes wrong with the bad CGI that they wanted to do to enhance it. I don't know.
It looked bad. It all looked bad.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
If I'm going to give positives, because again, it's not a terrible movie and we were focusing long on the negatives, let me focus on some good things.
Okay.
The best thing this movie does, by far, even though it was completely rushed, and I'm pretty sure because they cut out a lot of stuff, but by the end of this movie, we get the Superman that we've been waiting for since Man of Steel. He is finally the right type. He's like kind of like the cheery, happy. He makes the jokes. He's smiling a lot. He makes a joke, almost like he wants to die again. He makes that joke with Cyborg. I was finally grinning. I'm like, this is the optimistic truth, justice in the American. Yes, we finally got there. It took a minute, but people should be happy with this.
Completely unearned. It's the worst part of the movie.
That's what I'm saying. But they rushed through it so much, but at least we do get there. So I'll be happy with that.
I don't like that. But I will give it a positive as well, which is that this is the first movie out of any of the movies that Snyder did where I felt like there were genuine emotional moments that actually did work. Which is definitely damning this movie by faint praise. But in spite of itself, when he and Lois Lane are having that super on-the-nose conversation, it's still emotional. Because they really sold it for the first time ever. There are a couple, when the moms seeing him again for the first time, like that is emotional in spite of itself.
Or when when Diana and Bruce talk about Steve, I thought those moments were actually quite emotional as well, and it connected to the previous movie. So they did a good job with that stuff. Yeah,
so it had a couple real, genuine moments interspersed, ad hoc with a bunch of random nonsense.
Yeah,
and some generic plotty stuff, very, very artificial dialogue, and bad CGI. That sounds like your kind of movie.
Yeah. And the biggest sin for me that this movie made, no iconic theme.
No iconic theme. No iconic anything, Colin.
No iconic theme in this movie. That's terrible.
Only iconic Mercedes-Benzes.
Yes, for sure. Oh, there's not a sponsor.
And I think that's where we're going to have to leave it. So. Yep. From Inside Voices, I'm Adam Rubin.
And I'm Colin Benning.
And this has been another episode of Inside Voices First Takes. We've, of course, been talking about the Justice League. We'll see you next time.